good job, it's really hard this week. You call them and you go deeper with them on that. And it really does provide a way to get to the next level of relationship. It's a great opportunity to use apprenticeship as a way to go deeper.
Carla,
Yes.
one of the things which, and Nina, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there seems to be a demographic within Vintage of people who have been frustrated with mainline churches and have reconnected here. And I'm just wondering what the percentage of people are that are connected into community groups, or if there's still people out there that could be great apprentices but are not involved in a community group. And how can we, if there's a way to identify those people and get them involved in a community group?
It is such a great point, because I think you're so right. Vintage is like a refuge for those of us who have been wounded, because it's us, right? Wounded by church and other churches and the Christian experience in a lot of ways. And I mean, I don't know how to identify, because most of us, we lay low for a really long time and stay hidden until you eke out something to, Kristen, and she goes, hey, and then gives your name to Beanie. And so, I mean, it's true, there are a lot of us like that here in the church, and so that's a great point. It's really about listening for that in your groups. Listening in that at church, if you do, Soul Kitchen or the men's ministry, to really be listening for people who have come from other churches and have years and years of experience. But,
breakout time.
Yeah, breakout time.
Mingle.
But it's a great point. That's such a great, I love the idea, just the idea of being in service and talking to somebody during breakout and finding that they would love to come to your house. They just want to be asked. They just want an invitation.
For example, today, although I'm an usher, and it's kind of my job, I went and talked to some people I've never seen before in the front row, and I said, can I please understand why you sat in the front row? And got a big laugh about it. And, can you give me, so, turns out this is their second time to this church. They've been church shopping, they go to UCSC, and they're a part of no group. So I got all that in just a few minutes, and found out when the college-age people meet and all that, went back and reported it to them, and they said they were going to come. So there's two people that'll be at the Tuesday night college group next Tuesday, I would imagine. I'd bet money on it if I was a betting person. But, well,
It is.
So it's really, it's training your ears to really super listen and to break out of our comfort zone. I mean, isn't it true that the best, when you come to church and you see the people that you're in community group with, you're like, you just want to be with them. You just do, because it feels good, it's natural, you want to be together. And when you're together with one another, you're not making room for somebody who isn't together with anyone. And I know that that's sort of, that's the plight of all churches. We have to try and push ourselves. I mean, we were just talking with Jonathan, who's our connections leader, and he was like, oh, we have to do the mingle. Oh, not the mingle. Because it's painful, it's difficult.
So I'll chime in on that real quick. Like, Bill, you're my one mingle success story. Like, I don't know, the first time Bill ever came to church, I did not like the mingle. I work here, I'm supposed to love the mingle. But it is awkward to talk to people that you don't know. And so Bill sat behind me, and I'm like, hey, have you been here? And he's like, no, it's my first time. I'm like, oh, we're doing community group sign-ups outside. You should check it out. And sure enough, Bill signs up for community group, and now he's an usher. He's co-leading his community group. Like, it has nothing to do with me, other than me hopefully inviting you out there to sign up. But yeah, the mingle can be really awkward. But what a great conversation! Like, hey, are you plugged into any ministries? Are you doing anything? Have you checked out the men's ministry? Like, that's such an easy way to start a conversation, and invite somebody. Hey, there are community groups. You guys should check. You should, we can get you connected. Or where do you live? There are groups based on where people live too. So that mingle time, you can make it less awkward by already having some ammo in your boom, boom, boom. Just start talking about community groups.
The whole point.
Exactly.
Because the church structurally has set it up for you to care for the people that come here. So getting anyone who's not in a home group into a group is our priority, right? That's where they will get their care and their needs met and relationships started and start to feel like they're a part of, which means they'll come back. And as this church grows, which has been growing right in front of our very eyes, we have to continue to grow the amount of community groups we have to make room for the new people that don't have a group. And there are many, I would imagine, maybe Nene knows, I don't know how many people come here regularly who are not part of a group, but I'm imagining
A lot of
that
them.
if you ask 4 people on a Sunday or Sunday, if they were in a group, you'd get a lot of no answers. And that's a perfect conversation to start up some kind of help them find a group if you can't invite them into yours.
But the problem is that most of the groups get full, and then they're full.
Right, 20.
And so what Nene does every 6 months is runs around the church and looks for new community group leaders.
Help me, please.
Begs people and stalks them. And, and so what we're saying is really where we want to look for new leaders is within your groups.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So are you open with the whole group that this is the apprentice? If the group breaks off, this is who you're going with? Or is that kind of under the,
Great question.
That's a great question. So when it's time to start a new group out of your group and your apprentice is ready to go, basically you see who they've really been connected with, and you give them those people. You guys are going to go, and then you'll be their apprentices, and then we're going to take this brand new couple who just came last week, and they're going to stay with us.
Okay.
But every month we're going to get together for a potluck, or we're going to stay connected because we're like an extended family.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, there will be natural relationship within your group.
Right.
And that's who they'll take with them. So we have been part of groups where the apprentice took the entire group and we stayed by ourselves and got all brand new people. And then we've been part of groups where we took half the group or 2 people from the group and the leaders stayed with everyone else and picked new apprentices. So it can be very organic and sort of the natural flow of things. Don't force it.
And it's hard to, we ask you guys to go deep and to build relationships with your groups, and then we're asking you to hold them really loosely. Our groups are a gift to us. So I understand from your guys' perspective if you're having a hard time with this, because I have a hard time with it personally, thinking that we're asking you to go deep, we're asking you to pour into these people's lives, and all of a sudden, are we going to rip you apart? Like, we don't have a necessary date for when it's time to shift, but if our goal is to have everybody in this church involved, that's my goal, right? Is to have everybody in this church in a community group. Right now, we have, between all of your groups and the men's ministries in the 20s and 30s, there's probably about 140 people out of the 800 that call this place home. And so, again, we want to protect you guys and not have 25 people in your group. The men's groups and the women's groups are different because the women's is seasonal, but like 20s and 30s is really fluctuating because of the age and whatnot. But that's why the best way, the healthiest way for us to grow as a church is to care for our community. It's so easy to love on our group so much and to love the people you're with and not want to hold that loosely in a sense. But if our goal is to get allow other people to have the same opportunity that your group is having, then we have to hold it loosely in a sense. It's like having kids, I guess. They're ours, but they're really God's. And so that's our goal for you guys. So if you're having a hard time connecting that, know that you're not alone. I do too. But
And Nene may call in 6 months and say, hey, is everybody in your group ready to leave? And we may say no. Get away, don't talk to us right now. We're not ready. And
that's okay.
That will be understandable. But if God is tugging on your heart and you know that this couple or this person, it's time for them to take off, and it's killing me emotionally because everything in my flesh wants to hang on to them because we love them so much and they bring so much to this group, but you gotta let them fly. It's time to let them fly. It's like when your kid turns 18 and is done this, so it's fly, Taylor, flap your wings, right, go. It's hard to say goodbye, but it's really super good for everyone. And then the blessing it brings for a brand new group of people not connected yet is just so powerful.
This church has an evangelistic bent towards people who have no love for organized religion, who may not yet know Jesus. I had to that's the heart I get from listening to Dan and reading his books, right? I happen to have the very same heart. I really like to go after and hang with people who don't know the Lord and hate church, really. Because I was that guy. I was totally that person. And my life has completely changed because of Jesus. So I want other people to know that can happen for them. So structurally, if there's only 150 or 60 people out of 900 that go to this church, that almost sounds like a crisis to me. Because, I mean, I don't want to sound dramatic, but here's my point. When somebody does just begin a relationship with the Lord, it is critical for them to get grabbed onto by someone and held onto. Because, I mean, there's that parable about the soil they fall into. If it doesn't get into fertile soil and start getting watered and treated and, you know, hugged, loved, and slugged in places where they need help, and, you know, I mean, then they blow away. They do. The enemy will come and pluck them up and they disappear. They just don't stay. I mean, there's some crazy statistic about the amount of people that have raised their hand and given their life to the Lord, and those that still believe and go to church, right? Something happens to them. And the reason it happens, or one of the biggest reasons, is that they just didn't get lassoed and tied up into a loving group of people who can pour into them, right? And, I mean, does that make any sense?
Yes.
So, we had a lot of people apparently in this church who aren't connected with groups. Hence, let's get some apprentices and co-leaders and or spiritually mature people who are ready to lead, identify, have conversations with them and see what's what, like a big check-in. I mean, and then pick somebody who has zero spirituality, brand new or whatever, and take on that challenge, because seriously, that's so much fun. I mean, if you want fun, if you want it to be really fun, it is work, but it's totally fun to watch somebody go from turning their life over to taking on a community group. That's like incredible, serious. And yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you know, just to add to what you were saying about the parable of the seed and stuff, like something Heather and I were talking about a while back was like, you know, yeah, some of the seed gets snatched up, it doesn't fall in fertile soil, but even some of the stuff that starts growing gets choked out. And it says, by the concerns of the world.
Right.
You know, and I really feel like, you know, like people are so worried about life right now. Like we're so like stressed, and like the stuff I feel the church should be laughing at. Like we should just be like, ha ha ha. Oh, we're so, it's like, why would we be concerned with that? And yet we're like pulling our freaking hair out, you know? And I feel like the community group, and you hear stories about it, like really meeting each other's needs and taking some of that stress away. And maybe like, you know, you've got the like fertile soil and you've got like the weed management going on too, you know? So it's like some pretty sweet action.
Totally. And
Who needs
it is-
Roundup?
It is the, I love that, that's a great metaphor. But, I mean, it is the community group in which people get cared for, their daily angst, you know, and the things that we are tearing our hair about that we shouldn't be. And, you know, what Dan was even talking about today, how we should be, you know, judging each other. That's such a hard word for me to, like, don't judge, but, you know, and helping each other and correcting one another, and how amazing that process is to be able to walk through life with a group of people who take care of you. And how sad it is that so many people in this church still don't have access to that. So we have to, our hearts have to break for that. It really does. Our hearts have to break for that. And so we're kind of encouraging everybody to go back to their groups and have this discussion with them. And say, you know, we were really talking about this whole thing and what need our church has. And, you know, and does any of this sound exciting for somebody? Not right now, but in the future, potentially take a piece of this group and then open themselves up to other people who need to be part of the group. And see the response that you get. Have a conversation about it that's totally God-led. And you'll see that people will, their hearts will get pulled on. They will get convicted and tugged. They will say, ugh, I don't want to do it, but, you know, I think I'm supposed to.
Is
And
it
that
guilt?
is good. No, Not
Guilt
guilt.
work, guilt works.
I know, not guilt, we don't want guilt, so. Yeah.
It's been interesting to kind of let the guys do this. I'm trying to pull myself out a little bit, and the fact that Nene sends me these guys that I just put a little thing on the yellow thing in the bulletin, and I get freaked out to call these complete strangers. But it is the most, like I did this a couple weeks ago with some guy that just needed to talk to, and he just got off of, I don't know what it was, some kind of drug, and he came and he's been just excited about being there, and it was hard for me to make that phone call and talk to this guy, but all I did is invite him to Tuesday night, and he came, and it was really neat to see it, and even I got to hang out with him last night at bar night, and he's like, I need to really put my faith in God better, and those are the things where you're like, take a step and let it go. And it was scary, but it was kind of like, all right, I get excited about hearing people's stories. And that's what that was the first question I asked this guy, stranger, what's your story and how did you get to where you are today? And I leave it there, and it's amazing how many stories you hear and how great stories you hear. But even with the apprentice thing is that, with even that trying to get my group to, now I want to have guy-led groups out there happening. And that's why I'm wanting these guys to lead. I can be watching as a leader, all right, this guy can do it. Let's put you on a different night or something like that. They can make it bigger, make it go crazier.
You know, that is ripe for apprenticeship,
Yeah.
because, I mean, I already have a vision of his testimony, powerful testimony, changing somebody else's life who's in the shape he was in. I mean, that's how the kingdom of God works.
Well, and we're going to be equipped, like, while you guys are apprenticing them and building them up, giving them facilitation rights or whatever, like allowing them to kind of step up in certain ways, they're also still going to go through our training, our Cultivate training, before they're ready to fully launch. So, you know, with some of you, I've been like, you know, at least they aren't sure if you want to lead. Come to our training. I feel like you'll feel more encouraged and empowered by it. And sometimes, you know, when Ryan said he had to call that guy, every time somebody checks a box for community groups or Soul Kitchen or men's ministry, we have to call them. And it is a little bit like, oh, I got to call somebody. But something we tell our staff here is that that's a soul. You are, that person was brave enough to check a box. Or if you're at the mingle or talking to somebody like, hey, come to our community group. That is a soul that you're impacting. And that's something to be mindful of. Like, it's easy for me, like, I just got to make this phone call and get it over with. But every time before I make these calls, or even before I approach somebody about leading, I'm remembering this is a soul that is going to be impacted or making an impact on somebody. And it totally changes your perspective. And so as you're thinking of those people who might be apprentices in your group, or even somebody who might need an invite to a group or plugging them in somewhere, it's remembering that they are a soul and somebody who needs Jesus, whether or not they've never known him or have known him for years. It's still an opportunity you're providing to somebody, more than just a body. It's actual somebody's future, eternal future. So
I like having the older guys, and I kind of let the older guys take on some of the newer guys. And
Absolutely.
let them kind of be together, and it's fun to watch, because I don't have as much, I've realized that I don't have as much time as I do now that I have a 1-year-old. Like, I don't have time, I want to be with my kid. But empowering other people to help out others is so rewarding, because it's kind of like, you're doing it, I don't have to do it anymore,
And
which
it's
is
good
good.
for everybody. It's good for the person who's, who's mentoring and the person who's being mentored.
I was going to address the timing, when breaking
it's a good one.
apart, but still loving each other. We were in a home group, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, that we had come to Nene and we were like, just, you need to put us in a group where we know people, we just need to be loved and fed right now. We just need to be, we knew everyone was already full or whatever, and she put us in with people we'd known for 10 to 20 years. And it's what we needed right then, but it soon was so comfortable. Like, we all have known each other our whole lives. So no one was being open. There was no raw. There was no, it was really good for a little bit, and then it was like, okay, what are we even doing Bible study here? So it was time for us to start over. And we knew 2 couples, but we didn't know 3 that joined our group. And it's just so authentic and new, and everyone's struggling to share because you got to put yourself out there and try and be on your toes and like preparing for them to come over, and not just being like, what's up, we know everything, we've been through it all together, so that's for us when we knew it was time to, okay, step away from this comforting little, it was a good little time and it was so sweet, but it was time to, Nini's like, okay, guys, let's go.
Totally. Stepping out of that comfort zone,
Yeah.
being willing to be uncomfortable. It's like we talk in the training about, we set the tone by what are we willing to share even in our groups about our own selves, and and it's just that out of that comfort zone, and you just have faith that God is going to be there when you take that step off into the abyss. But it's exciting and wonderful, and that rawness is so great. People who are grappling with whether or not they believe, oh my gosh, that is awesome.
Most of the time, training or discipling an apprentice has to do with changing the way they think about things and pointing them towards what the Bible has to say about that very thing. I mean, I love that verse in Romans 12:2, but the first part of that verse, which lots of people don't say, is don't be conformed to this world. And be transformed by the renewing of your mind, which really means change by changing the way you think, right? And it then counsels you to go to what is God's will, because it's great and perfect. So much of what you'll be doing with your apprentice is helping them how to think about things and getting them to start even asking that question, which frankly I still do to this very day, because my thinking's messed up and so is yours, right? Our thinking is messed up. And I will call my mentor, counselor person and ask them specifically, how do I think about this? Because this isn't working for me the way I'm thinking about it right now, right? Give me 5 other biblical ways to think about this besides killing them, right? And, that is so much fun too, right? And you don't have to, has anybody ever been in here and sat down and been in a conversation where you walked away going, the Holy Spirit totally showed up? That wasn't me, or you got up to speak, or talk to someone, or share something or something, and you totally left knowing that the Holy Spirit showed up for that when you weren't prepared or weren't ready or had no idea what you were going to say or do? Has anybody ever had that experience?
Yeah.
Okay, lots of people have. It happens all the time. It's one of the reasons I love the Lord, is that He totally takes care of me when I'm unable to, or gives me something else when I think I have the right thing. He will change that at the last minute and throw me all off, but it was His will, and I always want to stay open to that. But this isn't something you have to do alone. So we do this using God's power. And just a reminder I put here, because this power is the very power that made an iron axe head float. Has anybody read that story in, I think it's 2 Kings, about the iron axe head floating? Well, if you haven't, you totally need to go there after you get home and read that story, because it's, I think, one of the most bizarre stories in the Bible, besides the one that has the donkey speaking. Right? I mean, these are 2 incredible stories that say the very same thing, and they demonstrate through faith God's power. I mean, it never goes away. It rises the dead. It just is always there when you need it. Now, I know at some point you want to break out, Nini, don't we? Or not?
It's up to you.
It's up to me.
You.
Well, I think that one of the things that, we're talking about is that we also have this core team for you. That, there's going to be there's going to be certain groups that come under, Steve and I, and some under me and Christian, and we want to be there for you. So it's not that we know more than you, or we have, a better handle on the Bible or what God would have to say. It's just sometimes you need to go to somebody and say, help me think about this person in my group, because I'm so connected, I'm so in it, I'm so emotionally attached that maybe I'm not seeing God's plan in this whole thing. We want to just partner with you around any of those things that come up in your group. If you get into apprenticing somebody and up comes an issue and you think, oh boy, now what do I do? Or maybe this person isn't really a good idea for a place. Please, we so wanna partner with you, walk with you through that. We can help pray and counsel with people in your group with you, whatever you need. So what we're asking, is to take on kind of this big discipleship piece, adding that into what you already do, but we don't want to just leave you out there without the support and the help and the encouragement that you need as well. So I think that's what we were.
Yeah, I want to say something about
Yeah.
that too. I want to read this little verse out of Proverbs. The one who blesses others is abundantly blessed. Those who help others are helped. It's pretty simple. I don't know about you, but I could use all the help I can get. So if we got a train, I'm totally up. So I'll be in the front of the line, right? There's just a reward in watching people change. And yeah, it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, especially if you adopt the 80% principle. I choose someone who's brand new and knows nothing. I'm thinking, but it's not something you really have to do alone, which is kind of one of the points Carla's making. We will and want to totally help you with that. We are and wanting to show up for a parent council session for that person, or you, or prayer for you, around some, maybe you hate this person now after you got to know them, they're so awful, right? And you're stuck on their stuff, right? So this is not uncommon, because we can't be helpful to anyone pastoring them if we get stuck on their stuff. What we do, or try to do, is look over the top of their stuff and see them where and how God sees them, and see them 3 years from now, and 2 years from now, and the testimony that drug guy's giving to some poor guy who thinks he's a loser and is changing and is getting involved. We have to look past their stuff, and sometimes we get stuck there. Not sometimes, a lot of times. And it's hard to learn how to love people you don't like, right? So, yeah, in that or anything or any place where you think you need help or don't even need help, you just want to hang and check in. That's kind of what we're here for as a core team. Think about it. We don't have all that many community group leaders. The room looks kind of full, but we have 900 people in the church, and we have a few people on the core team to care for you. We're growing all of that. Edie's going to grow the core team, so there's more people to help you guys and support you and meet with you. And Carla and I personally, she divvied up a couple people that are going to be kind of under our that we're going to support. And we're dying to get with them and meet with them and want to go to their group if they'll have us to kind of sit and be a part of the group. Stuff. We want to get our hands dirty and wet. And everybody has stuff. There's a nice verse which I can't remember. It has something to do with the oxen and the pen being really dirty and stuff. Who's the Bible answer man in the woman in this group? Right? There's a verse that says nothing's happening if there's
All
yeah. All of it.
Come on,
All in
Owen.
here?
That's where the pen is clean, there's no work getting done.
Exactly. Something like that. But anyway, it's a messy business, and that's a good thing. Right? Work's happening, oxen are hanging around, big mess to clean up. Right? That's what we're all here for. I know it sounds really ugly, but it's true. It's not going to all be just cherry and roses.
I think a big emphasis of the core team too, though, is to prevent church accidents, right? We don't want broken relationships, and we don't want leaders to burn out too. So a big part is, we don't want leaders to burn out. People lead busy lives, and so leaders need to be nurtured too, or at least they need help recognizing when they're on the verge of burning out, because you can't give from an empty heart, right? You have to be able to give out of the abundant joy that God's given you, and so I think that's a big emphasis of
You can only pour out so much before you're empty.
yeah. So
Yeah, we had a group one time, a community group, and very difficult people in the group, and I remember just feeling like, where is my help with these people? It was so hard, and I took a bunch of the women to a women's, it was like a women's retreat convention, and my women in my community group that were with me were very difficult women, and so the rest of the women in the church really didn't talk to us, and I remember feeling like, oh my goodness, you know, what on earth is this about? This is, they wouldn't push past their uncomfortable, you know, feeling uncomfortable around them to get in there and help. And so that's kind of, we don't ever want you to feel like that. We don't ever want you to feel like you're out on your own with this group of people and that nobody supports you. Because we really want to support you. Because being a community group leader is so important. It is what happens for people around, oh, my mom's in the hospital, or who visits them, or who makes them a meal, or, you know, it is that stuff. That is, anybody can come to church and get a great message, and they are great here, and I love them. But it's who is there when, you know, your kid is sick. You know, who's calling you when, you know, your marriage is hard, or you're wondering what you're doing in life, or what God's calling you.
He's organizing the dinner list.
Right.
Here's a verse I love. Those who put others on the right path of life will go like stars forever. That's you. And then there's a verse that talks about the reward. And if you even give a cup of cold water to one of the least of my followers, you surely will be rewarded. And that's a fact. I mean, I have that experience firsthand, so I can tell you that it's a fact. That is a reward, to watch people drink from the cup of life who are dying on the vine. You know, and they can be up one day and dying on the vine the next. So it's really kind of not specific to people. People have stuff. So I thought that we would break out in groups, and then I thought that we would do that kind of by the core team people.
Sure.
Do you have that
Yeah.
figured out, maybe?
Let me get that.